The 2026 Big Easy Open has officially wrapped up today. Its inaugural event didn't go too bad. A lot of people were criticizing the course. The tee pads were the size of Texas, and we had some scandals going on throughout the event. We're going to dive into all that today in this video. Now, as a fan of the game, I was pretty nervous on how this course was going to play out. I mean, I was watching practice rounds, and it kind of just felt like the players weren't really, I don't want to say not taking it serious, but you could definitely tell that they just didn't really like it that much. They thought it was way too hard. I mean, just like I said, watching practice rounds, they're just complaining about trees being in terrible spots. They're complaining about the holes being too long and the pars being a little crazy. I mean, hole 18 had like a handful of birdies on the whole entire weekend. That hole was just insane. This course was like the second longest on tour, and it was just insanely difficult. But to be honest, now that the tournament is over, I didn't really mind it that much because at the end of the day, the course is a rough draft because, like I said, this course already had existed, and then they took it and made it harder for the current standards of professional disc golf today because everybody's just amazing. So you can't really expect a brand new course to be amazing on its first go. Now I think if they come back here next year and they maybe take some trees out, they mess with a couple other holes, this course could be just amazing. And it seemed like the local community really liked it. I know the local government liked it because they pumped a lot of money into this course to make it really good. Part of the money that the city donated to the Parks and Rec department to make this course as best as it could be for this tournament was for those freaking tee pads. And I mean, I know you guys saw them. Those things are absolutely massive. And to be honest, I didn't really like them at all. I thought they were kind of comical because, I mean, obviously the size is just huge. It is like 5 times the normal tee pad. It's just the lines on it were a little crazy because, I mean, imagine you are a new disc golfer, right? And this is the first tournament you've ever watched, and you look at that tee pad and you see all these lines. I mean, it almost looked like Foursquare or just something random you'd see on the playground in elementary school. It was just a lot going on, and I felt it was a little unnecessary. Now let's get it rolling with FPO here first. Now, obviously, with the new course, we don't really know how these players are going to shoot on it, and then you got to throw in the factor that we know that this course was going to be really hard. So we didn't really know, we didn't really even have a guess on how these players were going to shoot. But on day one, Holland Hanley comes out with a very good 6 under par, which rated 1018, which I thought was a little light. I thought it should have been a little bit higher, maybe in the 1030 to 1040 range, considering that second place Rebecca Cox after that round was 2 under par, and then you had a couple 1-unders, evens, and then everybody else was above par. So I thought the rating should have been a little bit better, but it is what it is. Now, what we did find out now that the tournament is over, that Holland's round in round one was very impressive as she is the course record holder, and no one beat it. Missy was the closest one where she shot 5 down in round two, and to be honest, this 5 under by Missy made day 3 more of an interesting thing now because Holland shot 1 under par and Rebecca Cox shot 1 under par as well. So that means Holland Hanley was 4 strokes clear of Rebecca, and she had 5 strokes on Missy Gannon. And Owen Scoggins is right there at 1 under par behind all of them. So I thought this was a great final round league card, and it made it for more of an interesting day. Now, I don't know if you guys saw the statistic that when going into the final round with a 4-shot or more lead, Holland Hanley has never lost. And to be honest, through the first 4 holes of that round, I didn't believe that she was going to do it again. I mean, she shot +3 through 4 holes to Missy Gannon, who was her closest competitor, even par. So that's 3 strokes right there. That's almost job finished. And you could have thought that Han was just going to kind of chunder it away. Missy was going to come out and just take the title from her. And I kind of thought that too going through those holes. I mean, Holland's timing was just off. But over the next few holes, she proved my doubt to be incorrect. She takes the birdie on 5, birdie on 6, then ends up going on and taking the birdie on 9 and 10. And she just overall had a better control of her game. And then she was just making a lot of good shots down the stretch. And that's kind of when Missy shot herself out of it. On hole 16, Missy ended up taking a triple bogey 8 on the par 5 16. Very brutal way to end your round. And let's take a look at Owen Scoggins here. She ended up finishing +1 on the round, even for the tournament. And she really didn't have a very good outing, especially putting with her standards. When you think of Owen Scoggins, obviously, besides her personality, you're just going to think about how amazing she is at putting. And it wasn't the best for her standards, but for a guy like me, I would take her putting percentages on her worst day over my average. So overall, it was the worst event for Owen because, I mean, she was still top 5. She was 1 stroke out of a tie for second. And I do want to quickly shout out Lisa Fakis. She's had an amazing start to 2026. She ends up tied for second with Valerie Manduhano at 1 under par. I mean, she has played great. She didn't really make too many mistakes. She was kind of there throughout. I mean, she shot +3 on day 1, which ended up being 957 rated. Not terrible. She shot 3 under par in round 2 and then followed up with a 1 under today to finish at 1 under par. So shout out to her. She's had an amazing start to 2026. And I believe she's one of the players with the most starts in FPO at like Pro Tour events and never got a win. So if she can keep this trajectory throughout the season, maybe we can see that change. Now we're going to transition over into the MPO side of things. And I thought, obviously, the ending to this side of the tournament was very amazing. The final stretch of disc golf was phenomenal, but we're going to get into that later. We're going to start out with round one, where we had a little bit of randomness at the top of the leaderboard. We had guys like Ty Love leading the tournament at 6 under par, 2 strokes clear of Joseph Anderson. And we also had Garrett Gurthie on lead card after round one. And I don't know if you guys saw his outfit during round two, but pretty insane. You should go look at it. It's an outfit for sure. And I want to give a quick shout out to Luke Taylor, because in round two, he just had an all-time stretch of disc golf. I mean, out of nowhere, he just nukes his way up through the leaderboard. He takes the ace on hole 9, which I believe was the only ace all weekend, and he started 5 under par through 10 holes. It was just a crazy stretch. And effectively, this stretch of disc golf from Luke Taylor just kind of put him in contention for the tournament. Because to be honest, if you have a stretch of holes like that where you're just catching fire and you shoot 5 under par, I mean, let's say this. If you shot 5 under par in the first round and just shot even for the next round, you would have been on lead card for the final round. It's just that kind of course. But when round two was all said and done, we had one of the most insane rounds of all time. Ricky Wysocki shoots 10 under par on the new layout, course record holder, and to be honest, this is one of those that might never be broken again. I mean, this is an insane round. He gets the eagle on hole 12. He took a bogey as well. 91% C1X. He hit 9 out of 18 circle ones in regulation. I mean, he's just putting himself in scoring range, and he was capitalizing every single time. And Ricky himself said that this was I believe he said that this was a top 5 round of his whole entire life. And Rick's been playing disc golf forever, and he's had so many rounds above 1100 rated. So if this guy is saying that this is a top 5 round of his life, it's just insane. Luke Taylor ends up shooting 7 under par for the round, solidifying himself on the lead card for the final day. And honestly, the lead card for this final day was pretty dang good. We had Ricky in first place at 12 under par. 4 strokes behind him was Isaac Robinson and Gannon Buhr. So right there, we have 5 world champions right there within 4 players. And then we also have Luke Taylor, a rising young talent on the Pro Tour. So we were fixing for some great disc golf on Sunday, and what we got was even better than what I could have even imagined. Now, zeroing in on Gannon and Rick here, they didn't really start this round 3 very well. Through the first 5 holes, both Gannon and Rick shot a identical 1 over par. Now, how they both got to this 1 over par was a little different, but they still had the same score nonetheless. And they kind of were just hanging out around each other a little bit as the round went on. And it kind of seemed in moments like Rick was really just this was just his tournament. I mean, he made a lot of clutch putts. He had some amazing upshots, some scramble shots. And you were just thinking that this is just Rick's tournament. But then we get to hole 15. Rick ends up losing 1 stroke to Gannon as Ricky takes a bogey. And then he ends up losing another stroke to Gannon as Rick takes another bogey. And then Rick kind of rights his own ship on hole 17, where he gets the birdie. He was about circle's edge. But what Gannon did on that hole was kind of reminiscent of his first USDGC win when he was battling Niklas, and he made that insane putt on hole 17. Gannon steps up. He didn't have the greatest tee shot of all time. He threw it really low, and it ended up in almost like a ditch thing, so to speak. I don't know if there definitely wasn't water in it. Either way, it wasn't the best lie, and he was pretty far away from the basket, probably about 100 feet. And he steps up, presumably with like a MD3 or something, and he drills it. Left side corner pocket, humongous birdie. Like I said, it was kind of the same feeling I got when watching him at that USDGC. I don't remember what year that was, maybe 21 or 22. Either way, amazing putt. It was electric. So now we get to hole 18. Ricky has a 1-stroke lead over Gannon Buhr, and all this man has to do is par hole 18. Seems simple enough, right? Wrong. Because hole 18 is abysmally hard. I mean, it's probably one of the, if not the hardest holes on the Pro Tour. Hole 12, I believe, at Northwoods Black is very insanely hard. But this hole 18 at this course in Louisiana only had a handful of birdies the whole entire weekend. And Rick had to go out there and take a par. So obviously the pressure was on, and you could tell that this pressure was on because both Ricky and Gannon did not have stellar tee shots. They're off on the right side, meaning their second shots were going to be very difficult. And honestly, the second shot on that hole is extremely important, almost as important as a tee shot. We end up having Gannon low-key playing 4D chess because Rick throws the second shot, and then Gannon lines up his second shot, and he ends up putting it a little bit closer to the basket, but literally in the same area as Rick's did, meaning that Ricky's going to have to throw his third shot first so Gannon can kind of judge what he does based off what Rick does on his shot. And Rick ends up shanking it into the left side trees. He turns over a forehand. He's in jail. So now Gannon lines up for his shot, and I'm thinking he's just going to go down this hallway of trees and try to get himself a look for a putt. But he ends up looking up in the sky and he throws one of the most amazing sky Anheuser shots so far up in the air, and you can just watch it just crashes right into the circle. He ends up with like a 25 to 30 footer, and it's like, holy crap, Gannon's definitely gonna do this. So now it's up to Rick. All the pressure in the world is onto Rick, because obviously we know Gannon, he's a killer. He's not gonna miss that putt. You know me, I was sitting there watching it, and I was like, that's it. Gannon did it. He came from behind and beat him. But Rick stands up there, all the pressure in the world from 50 feet, 50 or 60, and he drills it. The crowd goes insane. It's just back and forth haymakers between Gannon and Rick, meaning that Gannon now has to sink his putt, which eventually he does, and now we go into a playoff. So now here we are, a playoff for the Big Easy Open Championship, and the playoff format is as follows. It was hole 1, and then if it ties there, they go to hole 17, where they will repeat until we have a winner. And we ended up not needing any more extra holes after hole 1, as Gannon takes the par to Ricky's bogey after Rick goes out of bounds on his second shot. And that is it. Gannon Buhr is crowned champion of the first ever Big Easy Open. Now, we do have to touch on a little bit of controversy and just kind of weird overall things that happened in this final round of MPO. The first thing being what people are calling Stickgate already on social media is when Ricky ended up moving a bunch of sticks from his lie on, to be honest, I don't remember the hole, but it was during the latter stretch of holes in the final round of this tournament. But from a viewer standpoint, you're watching it, and Rick's disc is here, and he ends up moving sticks that are a couple feet in front of him. And the rule is that you can move things that are obstructing your lie. And then, like I said, as a viewer, you're looking, and he's moving sticks that are way in front of him. So it raises the question, is like, is that even legal? And a couple holes later, they end up having a conversation between the card and Jeff Spring about what Ricky did on that hole. And Rick claims that it was behind his lie and obstructing it, but all the other guys were kind of skeptical on that. And at the same time, is they didn't end up calling it in the moment. And they did have that conversation, but it kind of still felt like no one wanted to step up and be that guy to say, hey man, that really wasn't behind your lie, and that's really not legal. To be honest, I feel like this is like the biggest problem we have in our sport right now, and this is something that has to be fixed before people can really start taking our sport seriously as like an actual legitimate sport. These guys on these cards, obviously they hang out all the time, they know each other, they're friends, and a lot of these guys, they just don't want to be the one to step up and be like, hey man, you definitely took too much time right there, or hey man, that was definitely a footfall, or whatever the case may be. They don't want to be seen as the villain. And obviously, if that's the case, no one's going to call any rules violations at any time, so people are just going to be breaking the rules left and right. There has to be a rules official on every league card and maybe chase card for these tournaments, not even final round, every round. Because the fact of the matter is, golf is a self-governing game. So if you're on a card with people and you see them breaking the rules and you don't call it, that's just, it is what it is. They could be doing that all day, but if no one calls them, whatever, it happened. But if you have a person who works for the PDGA, they work for the Disc Golf Pro Tour, and they're there, they're actively paying attention, they're calling people on violations, we just wouldn't have these problems. And we can kind of see a similar problem to this, not necessarily a rules official, but just the lack of a spotter on hole 1 of the playoff is just insane. This is a Disc Golf Pro Tour event, and there's nobody to spot on the first round of the playoff. To be honest, in my opinion, this is like the craziest thing that we could talk about now that this tournament is over. Obviously, we already know there's a whole lack of a spotter there. That's like its own problem and its own thing. But now we have to rely on the two competitors playing in the playoff and Jeff Spring and maybe some other guys dictating where Ricky went out of bounds. Meanwhile, they're all back where Ricky threw the shot. They're a couple hundred feet away from where it actually happened. So how can you rely on the word of guys a couple hundreds of feet back give an accurate spot on where this disc went out of bounds, especially with how high he threw the shot? It's just so difficult to pinpoint an accurate spot of where he went out of bounds. Because if you look at the drone flight footage, there could be arguments made for different spots of where he crossed inbounds and then went out of bounds. You could argue that maybe he's on the right side, maybe he was more back on the right side, and obviously where he ended up taking his lie short of the pin but straight onto it. But it's just crazy that we have to rely on the word from these guys that were so far away for this lie. This is deciding a Pro Tour tournament. And the wildest part, in my opinion, was you had fans over on the gate who are obviously spectators, they're watching it, and these guys are yelling out to these players and these guys from the Disc Golf Pro Tour, telling them where they thought Rick went out of bounds. This is a professional tournament. We need people out there making these calls. We don't need fans yelling and influencing decisions. If this is gonna be a pro sport, and we're gonna have people pay to watch this stuff, that just can't happen. You don't see people watching NFL games influencing games, yelling from the stands. You don't see that in any sport. That's just not how it goes. It should be a referee, a rules official, a marshal. They should be making these calls. They need to have spotters out there. That should just go without saying, to be honest. And I hope that this situation just really opens the Disc Golf Pro Tour's eyes into the fact that they need better spotters, and these spotters need to be actual rules officials. They can't just be your average Joe volunteering because he lives in the area and he loves disc golf. You know what I mean? He might not know all the rules, and he's just out there for free swag. You know what I mean? We saw this last year at the Disc Golf Pro Tour Championship with the whole Aaron Gosling situation. That guy had an AirPod in. He was probably listening to some audiobook. He's not even paying attention. You know what I mean? It's just like these guys need to be about it. They need to be serious. They need to be employed by the Pro Tour, the PDGA, something. And we need to get marshals on these cars so they can make these calls, so we can stop having these debates on this or that because nobody wanted to stand up and make the call. It just needs to end. But to be honest, I could ramble on about what the PDGA and the Disc Golf Pro Tour need to do to be able to turn disc golf into more of a mainstream sport and really grow us as a sport. But that is a whole different conversation for a different day. What I want to know is what you guys think. What do you guys think about this whole stick gate situation with Ricky? Do you think it should have been a penalty, strokes added to a score? And then I also want to know what your guys' opinion is on how hole one of the playoff ended up shaking out. What do you guys think about the spotter? How can we improve? I want to know everything you guys are thinking. Let me know in the comments. Thank you guys for watching this video. And please subscribe. I got more stuff coming out as these Pro Tour events keep happening. Thank you guys.